was a teacher. She had a very strong education component when she was teaching us. When my dad was gone overseas to the Vietnam War, we were at home a lot, and she would encourage us to read, and from 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, 13, 14 years old, we'd read 20 books a week.
Oh my gosh,
I mean, we just go through them like candy.
My parents were really big proponents of reading, my mom especially. We used to do weekly trips to the public library. I think teachers in your younger years push everyone to read, but that doesn't necessarily make everyone a reader.
I didn't do a lot of reading when I was young because I'm more visual. I think because with my hearing loss, I'm deaf. So with my hearing loss, reading was really hard for me. I remember in high school I had to read The Hobbit. I thought that was the most boring book. You know, I don't like anything that doesn't happen realistically in life.
So what is your favorite book?
Either The More Child or The Children of the New Forest. I don't know, they're just like interesting, I guess.
I still remember one book. This book was about a boy who, you could say, got superpowers, but not really. He fell off a dock. While he was in the water for like 10 seconds, he started hearing everything underwater. I still remember that.
My favorite book of all time is called Esperanza Rising. It was about this girl that was like migrating from Mexico to the US. Now that's interesting because that's something that I'm interested in now. You know, my major like focuses on things like that. You're so egocentric, everything's like all about your world, and you're not really learning about other worlds, like unless you're reading about them.
When I married my husband, you know, his mother was a reading teacher. When I married her son, she told me from day one, when I have kids, that I should read to them every night, no matter what. If I read to them, that they will do very well in school. Even though I wasn't read every night as a kid, I made sure that with my own children that it's going to be different. I want the best for them. As I was reading to my kid, I realized some of these books were great. They were fun and interesting.
I'm in 9th grade.
Do you read a lot outside of class?
No, not really.
He used to. A ton.
Certain video games are very entertaining. If they taught, like, if we had to read, like, John Flanagan type stuff, then that'd be a lot more interesting. We read 12th Night.
Did that make you want to read more or less outside of class?
Less.
I have a few teachers in school that definitely influenced how I read and my enjoyment of it. I think it's been a really individual thing for me. I read a lot according to my moods.
They never gave us like, okay, you have to read this book and you have to read it by the end of the week, and then and we're going to have a test on it. It wasn't much of that.
We have a list of books and you just read any of them really. We would have to read the books and then go down to the lab once we finish them and take tests on them. Like, I don't want to go down and do a test on it.
I read for my own personal enjoyment. I like to read. I've always liked to read.
I love reading.
Most science fiction writers have predicted or written about almost all the scientific advances in the last few centuries.
I don't know, it just made me not feel alone.
And you guys would really like, oh, read it to me again, I love it, you know, and so that made me feel good, so I would want to do it more often.